What did the Rockets get in the James Harden trade? There's not much you can see right now. They traded for Victor Oladipo. He came from the Pacers in that deal. And they got a lot of picks, too. And then Victor Oladipo was eventually traded for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and another first. And both of those players are gone. Kelly Olynyk, when he was on the Rockets, he was playing pretty well. Pretty sure 19, 20 point per game scorer. He was able to space the floor, shot above average from three, paired well with Christian Wood, who can also space the floor. But he's a member of the Detroit Pistons now. Avery Bradley, he left. He didn't really play much for the Rockets, but he's going to sign elsewhere. I don't think he's been signed yet, but he's not on the Rockets. So James Harden turns into Oladipo, who turns into these two players who are now gone. And you're left with 9 picks and a pretty mediocre team in a lot of people's eyes. And yeah, they are mediocre, even though later in this video you realize I'm pretty high on this team, at least for the future. So there's nothing you can see with your own two eyes right now. There's 9 future first-round picks, and there's a lot of potential. That's what this team has been boiled down to. And typically with a generational superstar like James Harden is, you don't really get what you deserve in return. You never really win the trade if you're the one giving up the superstar. So if you're the Rockets, what does this leave you with? Well, you got the second pick in the NBA draft, and you acquired Jaylen Green, who's a really good pick. And without the James Harden trade, you wouldn't have been able to do this. You wouldn't have been able to play poorly and tank so well. And even if you won just a few more games, maybe you slide to 3 or 4 and you don't get the opportunity to pick Jaylen Green. And another big trade the Rockets made this year is they acquired Kevin Porter Jr. So you may look at this and you may think, yeah, the Rockets don't really have that bit good of a future, or they're not really going to be fun to watch. But I'm here to tell you they are a really fun team to watch and will be even more fun next year than they were last year. The Rockets are a team I watched a decent amount last year, actually. Probably top 3 or 4 of the teams I watched. I'm a Cavs fan, but the Rockets were a team I watched on the side. So, yeah, next year the Rockets are going to be really fun to watch. Last night, NBA Summer League, Cade Cunningham versus Jaylen Green, the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. And Jaylen Green felt like he deserved to go number 1 to Detroit. I don't know why he would want to play in Detroit, and I feel like he has a better situation in Houston to develop alongside 2 guards like John Wall and Kevin Porter Jr. And I'll get into that later because that's a weird little combination with kind of 3 guards, honestly, but you can play them in different ways. But yeah, last night, Jaylen Green has 25 points, Cade Cunningham has 20 points, and the Rockets initially didn't even want Jaylen Green. I'm not going to say they didn't want him, but they were trying to trade up for the number 1 pick, which they would have had to give up Jaylen Green, obviously, to do that, and a couple other things on your team because like the Pistons wanted a Godfather offer for it. So yeah, that happened, but you're not even stuck with Jaylen. Why? I'm not talking down on Jaylen Green, whatever. I love Jaylen Green. I don't know why I'm saying stuck with him, but you know what I mean. Yeah, Jaylen Green can hoop, though. He had a good game last night, and his game against the Cavs was good, too. He's shooting a higher volume from 3 than he did in the G League. Pretty sure he shot 9 threes in his first game against the Cavs, and last night he hit 3 of 5. And I mean, there are a couple weaknesses you can look for with Jaylen Green, but even his leaps from the G League Ignite to where he is now are pretty big. He's able to shoot pretty well from 3. He can shoot off the catch. He shoots off the dribble pretty well. He can navigate screens pretty well. Obviously, he's really athletic. His one kind of big weakness is just his frame on defense. You saw last night, maybe you didn't see the clip, maybe you did. He got bodied by Cade Cunningham in transition. He leaned his shoulder into him, and then Cade scored over him. But I think like most NBA players that come in kind of frail, unless that's like a part of their game and that's something that is like their trademark, like they're frail and they can do stuff because of it, which is not with Jaylen Green. Like he would benefit from getting stronger, and he will get stronger. So I really like Jaylen Green. He'll be fun to pair with, and here I'm jumping into this, he'll be fun to pair with John Wall and Kevin Porter Jr. So John Wall, it doesn't even feel like he's on the team right now, which is really weird to say. But for a while, he wasn't even listed in the Rockets' depth chart, and I don't know. He was out for the better half of last year, and they kind of moved on without him. Kevin Porter Jr. was playing point guard, and I really like Kevin Porter Jr. And you can run Kevin Porter Jr. at shooting guard or even small forward, but they'll put Jaylen Green at small forward. So your lineup, at least 1 through 3, consists of, hopefully, I don't think they can trade John Wall because he has such a big contract. But, yeah, I think you should keep John Wall because he can mentor Kevin Porter Jr. and Jaylen Green and this entire young Rockets team. And they have so many guards and so many people to develop. It's crazy. So you got John Wall at point guard, you got Kevin Porter Jr. at shooting guard, and you got Jaylen Green at small forward. And that's kind of a 3-guard lineup. At least Kevin Porter Jr. and John Wall are 2 guards, and you're running Jaylen Green at small forward. And he's 6'6", kind of an undersized Small forward, but it works. Kevin Porter Jr. I do really like on this team. He kind of like came, I'm not going to say he came out of nowhere. Like if you know him, you know him. He came from Cleveland in a weird situation. They had, I think it was Taurean Prince took his locker after the James Harden trade, and he flipped out, and then the Cavs were like, yeah, we got to trade him. And they traded him for a bag of chips, basically. They traded him for a second-round pick. And I'm sure the Cavs are regretting that now because Kevin Porter Jr. looks like he could be the future of the Rockets, like their franchise player, because it can't really be John Wall. I don't see him seeing the end of his contract there, but he'll at least be valuable while he is there. If they can find a trade suitor for him, he'll be gone. But, like, I see him playing the next year. I don't know. It's a weird situation with John Wall. But Kevin Porter Jr., just his ability to navigate screens and, like, size up his defenders. He can shoot really well. He loves his step-back move. He can also get to the rim. He plays like James Harden, and literally the way he sizes up, he likes going through the legs cross, blowing by you, because you never know if he's going to step back or you never know if he's going to go to the rim. And that was James Harden's trademark. So you trade away James Harden, and you have Kevin Porter Jr. not directly because of the trade, but like I'm not saying he's equivalent to James Harden in any way, but he's at least box office, and he can play like him, and he can sell you tickets like a lot of the players on the Rockets team can. And he's really fun to watch. I mean, he put up a 50 ball against the Bucks, I think it was. He was torching Drew Holiday, and Drew Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders. So he can score on anybody in front of him. He's like a really good passer for this Rockets team. And the Rockets also have a lot of good passers, which I can get into. Yeah, he's really fun to watch. John Wall, he was injured, I think, from February till the end of the season. At the bare minimum, he's good leadership for this young team. For Jaylen Green, for Christian Wood, for Alperen Şengün or whatever his name is, who's also been really impressive in the Summer League. Just this really young team. John Wall can be a leader to them. And he can give you 20, 25 a game when healthy. And he was pretty good to start the season, and he progressively got a little worse. I forget what his injury was. But, I mean, yeah, he was out for the rest of the year. I hope he's able to play next year because he can get to the rim whenever he wants. He can shoot the three ball. Okay. But, yeah, John Wall's a good leader for this team. The Rockets also acquired Daniel Theis this offseason, and I don't know how I feel about this fit. Kelly Olynyk definitely is a better fit because him and Christian Wood can both space the floor really well. That leaves some opportunities for Jaylen Green, John Wall, and Kevin Porter Jr. And, I mean, if you have a 5-out lineup with Kelly Olynyk and Christian Wood, I mean, the opportunities are endless. You can run a lot of pick-and-pop game. The rim is wide open. It just leaves a lot. Like, it's a 5-out lineup, so obviously the rim is more open for these perimeter players. And, yeah, I really liked Kelly Olynyk, but, I mean, Daniel Theis will be good. The Rockets weren't the best defensively last year. Christian Wood's a good defender, but their guards aren't really the greatest defensively. Jaylen Green's okay. He will get better. Kevin Porter Jr. is all right. And John Wall's a pretty good defender when healthy, so I guess it's not the worst. But as you go farther down the lineup, it's just not the best defensively. Daniel Theis is a good perimeter defender. He doesn't really get beat in switches as much as other centers do or anything. He can guard the perimeter decently well. And he's a really good help side defender, so just, I mean, pretty much in every single way, he helps your team out on the defensive end a little bit. He's not awful from three, but, like, he's not the best. He's not Kelly Olynyk shooting 38, 39% from three. I think he's a career 33% guy or something like that. So, I mean, can he space the floor? Not really. He kind of operates inside more than other players do and more than Kelly Olynyk would. Obviously, you can run 5-out with him, but it's a little shaky. So, yeah, Daniel Theis, they paid him $38 million, I believe. But, yeah, Daniel Theis, okay, signing by the Rockets. You also have Christian Wood, who was out part of the year last year. And I really like Christian Wood. He's another young piece on this team. And I don't know how many years they have him for. I think it's 3 or 4. So, yeah, you got to keep Christian Wood if you're the Rockets because he can space the floor. He's your 5. He's really fun on the inside, too. He can post people up even though he's kind of small. Really good defensively. One of the best defensive 5s in the league. And, I mean, his ability to run in transition's pretty good. He's a nice lob threat. So, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood, lobs all year, and just them operating in the pick and roll is going to be really fun. And you have other people off the bench that can lob to him as well. So he's fun. I really like him. If you want to talk about, like, young talent on this team and, like, box office people, you have a lot of them. Is this team going to win many games? I don't know how many games this team's going to win. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they're at least going to sell tickets and be fun to watch. I know I'll be tuning into them. You got Kevin Porter Jr., who's a box office guy. He's fun to watch. He's flashy. He gets a little ahead of himself sometimes, but that's what good players do. And you've got Kevin Porter Jr. as a young guy. You've got Jaylen Green, who people are already calling him one of the funniest players in the league. He was blasting Detroit music before the Pistons game because he's angry at Detroit for not taking him number one. So he's cool. I like his mindset with everything, and I like the way he plays. People call him a 6'6" Allen Iverson. I kind of agree with that. They don't really have similar play styles, but he can handle the ball pretty well. He's got to be a little smoother with it. He still has too many turnovers occasionally, but he can pass. He's a pretty good facilitator as well. He's got to improve on that. But the dude's only like 19, 20, so yeah, he's going to improve on that and get better with playmaking. And then on the bench, one player who, if you know, you know. If you've been watching the Summer League, you know. Josh Christopher. He's out of Arizona State. And everything that he wasn't really good at in college, he's getting better at right now. He's being better defensively. He might be one of the passers on their team, at least that I've seen. And his ability to finish through contact and really just get around anyone and make difficult shots is ridiculous, and it's just fun to watch. That's another player that can probably move his way up on the rotation. Pretty sure the Rockets already signed him. At least I hope they will, or they should after how he's played. So, yeah, he's going to move up in the guard rotation. He should be the backup, too. And you've got Jayshawn Tate, who was pretty solid last year, 11-point-per-game scorer. KJ Martin, high flyer. He jumps off his right, which you don't normally see. But he's like a lefty with a lot of bounce, and he really gets up there. He had a couple putback finishes last year, a couple lobs, transition dunks that were really fun to watch. So he's another guy that's decently young. He can be pretty solid. You've got Alperen Şengün, who had, I think, a 21-point game. I don't know if it was against the Cavs or against the Pistons last night. But he, the way he moves is so weird and so slow. And, I mean, he's just so smart that it doesn't really matter. He's really good defensively and help side. And if you looked at him, you wouldn't think he's a good defender, but he's solid. Can he space the floor? He shot like 18% in Turkey or wherever he comes from three. So not really, but he hit a deep three in one of the games. He made a couple threes, and he's really crafty. He had this one spin move that was really nice. He'll only continue to get better, so he's fun to watch. You got Daniel House Jr., who's kind of a spot-up shooter. He can shoot pretty well. He can create a little bit for himself, but he's kind of just a shooter. That's another nice piece to have. So you just got also you got Eric Gordon. He's not on the depth chart for some reason with the Rockets, but yeah, Eric Gordon's good when healthy. He was out part of the year last year. I don't know if he's going to stay on the Rockets. They've discussed a couple of trades with him, but yeah. This Rockets team is going to be fun to watch. I hope you know that. I hope you tune in. They've got so many good passers. They address their defense a little bit. I don't know how this team's really going to mesh together, but I think it will. And, at the very least, you're going to have a lot of highlights with this team and a lot of fun moments. So, Houston Rockets, you're not back yet, but you're on your way back. You've got a lot of good talent. And you're up there with Detroit for one of the best rebuilds in the league. So, yeah, that's cool. See ya.